Hi everyone, it's Chris speaking. Welcome back. Today I want to have a chat to you or do a trans story time about the first time that someone asked me why couldn't I just live the way that I was. Now this conversation happened with my in-laws, so it was when I told my partner's parents. Now when I got together with my partner, I was presenting and identifying as female, and it only really hit me a couple of months into the relationship, and then I played around with my pronouns, I played around with my look, and I presented masculine anyway in the female, I guess, spectrum, or I was still identifying as female but presenting masculine, gender non-conforming, that is the words that I was looking for. So it wasn't, a massive shock, or it wasn't a massive, I guess, change in the visual representation of me that they had, but it was a conversation that I had to have with them. So when I eventually sat them down and tried to explain myself. This was after I'd spoken to my parents about it. This was sort of after I'd come to a conclusion that I was male, or at least that I was not female, and not comfortable presenting or identifying that way, and started to use he, him pronouns, and started to go by Chris. So I sat them down in this house here, and I basically explained to them that I wasn't comfortable being referred to as my birth name, and I wasn't comfortable with she, her pronouns, and I didn't really know what it meant. Very similar to the conversation that I had with my parents, but I knew them more intimately, so the conversation with my parents didn't seem as hard. We'll wait. The dishwasher is done. So the conversation with my parents didn't seem as hard as this conversation that I had with Rachel's parents. So got through my bit, and they were pretty accepting. They took it pretty well, and they just said, "Oh, you've never really had a gender to us. You've just been Chris." And I got that a lot. When I was coming out. It's like, yeah, we never really saw you as female. You were just Chris, and I didn't mind that. It made that process a little bit easier for me, and just that, yes, I am me. I am who I've always been, but I'm now presenting another way. So when this question was posed to me, it was, what does this mean for you? And I sort of explained how hormones worked and how top surgery worked, and that was all the research that I'd really done at that point. I hadn't looked at lower surgery seriously for myself. I'd researched metoidioplasty and phalloplasty as options potentially, but the risk and the cost, it wasn't a viable option for me at that stage. Remember that I was pre-T, and I was still freaking out about hormones. I was still freaking out about what it all meant, but I was consuming all of this information. I was consuming so many YouTube videos. I was, on Reddit all the time. Any spare time I had, it was those two avenues, looking for trans-related content to try and relate to someone and to try and I guess find a pathway forward for myself. Now, I basically said to these guys that I was looking at hormones, but I didn't know yet, and my father-in-law said, well, why can't we just call you he, him pronouns, but you don't have to alter your body at all? And I think that is a thought process that happens to a lot of people that love us as we go through transition, because they don't quite understand what dysphoria feels like. And fair enough, if you haven't gone through dysphoria before, or haven't seen someone go through a really bad dysphoric episode before, then you probably won't understand the pain behind not identifying with the body that you're in, and the emotional turmoil that the emotional turmoil that you have to go through for that. Now, my mother and father-in-law have never seen that. I think my mum has seen me have a dysphoric breakdown once, and I had to be consoled, and she didn't really know what to do. I mean, she tried, so more power to her, but it's really hard to break out of that mindset. So for someone to ask me that question, it's very hard to turn around and be like, because my skin doesn't fit my body, because who you see in front of you might be Chris to you, but it's not Chris to me. There is something here that is not matching, and I struggle every day to put on this act that I am a normal human being when on the inside I just feel tingly and weird, and like I don't even know how to put into words what dysphoria feels like. I've tried in a couple of videos, but for me it was just, this overwhelming out-of-body experience where I did not fit the skin that I had been given, and it was like crawly and whatever. The point of this video is that is a question that you may get from a loved one or a friend, and it comes from a place of caring, it comes from a place of love. It's that they don't want you to, what they see is hurting yourself or physically altering yourself to be the person that you were born to be, or to be more comfortable in your own skin. And it's a very difficult conversation to have. My suggestion to navigate that space is to find videos or find things like subreddits where people explain what dysphoria feels like to them, and find something that relates to you. Remember that every transition is different. There is no one way to transition. You can do it however you feel that you need to do it, and no one gets to tell you otherwise. But make sure you're strong in that conviction. I sort of went into my box and I was like, I don't know, but I don't feel good in my body, and I need to do something for me that makes me feel good, or at least comfortable in my body. That's it. It was a bit of a rant. It was just a story time. That whole day was a bit emotional, and it's weird to think back on now that I'm, about between 15 and 16 months on testosterone whenever this comes out, and to think that was nearly 2 years ago. It was December, I think, in 2018. So nearly 2 years ago, I had that conversation where I was like, I don't feel right. And I don't get asked it anymore. When I went on hormones and after I got top surgery, he was like, I get it. I get now why you have to do this. And that is something that will happen for you, but it's hard to talk about those effects when it hasn't happened to you yet. Anyway, that's it from me. That was my father-in-law asking me why I had to change and how I tried to have that conversation with him. If you made it to the end, give it a thumbs up. If you like the content, click on my face somewhere. If you have something specifically that you want me to talk about, then comment down below, and we'll catch you next time. Okay, bye.